So, hi everybody out there. Good evening and welcome. We are just about to kick off our session, so please feel free to sit back and relax. We can't see you. I don't know if everybody realizes in the Zoom webinar, we can't see you, so you're free to be in your pajamas and just kicking it on the couch, and nobody will judge you for that. So please get comfortable, and I'll give a little welcome here as people continue to log in, and then I will hand it over to Wade tonight, who is our the star of the show. So welcome everybody. This is the kickoff panel for our Mission Viejo Library's third-ish annual Comic-Con. Of course, last year in 2020, we had our Comic-Con, our Comic Fest planned, and then as we know, everything kind of fell apart. So it was bad timing and we had to cancel, but we are super excited to bring back Comic Fest this year in a virtual format. So tonight is our first panel, and then the same link that those of you who've made it in, you're gonna use that same link all week long, hopefully at 6:30 each night this week through Sunday. We have so many great panels for you planned, and we are giving away prizes, so that's a little incentive to try to make it to all of them if you can. And I also wanted to give a huge thank you before we get started. Our coordinator this year, Lauren Reaganhart, who I think I saw in our attendees, is one of our librarians and was brave enough to try to plan this in a virtual format. So huge kudos to her, because as we know, taking things virtual is just a whole different ball game. So we're really excited. Let us know if you have fun. Feel free to email us, give us feedback on our Facebook page. We'd love to hear what you see during the week that you love and want us to bring back next year, hopefully when we're able to do our programs in person. And so speaking of prizes, those of you who are still logging in, we are doing prizes at each panel. So I have 3 prizes that we're going to give away tonight, and you have to be here to get them. So the more things that you attend, the better chance that you have of winning. So let me see if I can show. Okay, technology, we'll see if it works. I'm going to try to share my screen here, and I hope that you can all see our first prize that we're giving away is a signed copy of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules. So Jeff Kinney is just an awesome guy, and he came by our library. We do lots of author events, and he signed some copies of his books for us. So this is one of our prizes we're giving away. And even if you're a little bit old for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, it makes a really great gift for nieces, nephews, or kids. It's always special to get a signed book. At least I think so. It makes you it's just something kind of to cherish, especially as a young person. It's a special gift. So that's going to be one of our prizes. And our next one here is the cover of Mara, which is a comic book that came out, I think, a couple years ago by Danielle Page through DC Inc., which is really cool. I hope you guys can see that on the screen share. And our third prize that we're giving away is a D&D starter kit. So for those of you who are Dungeons and Dragons people, we have a panel coming up on Friday that we are we're going to host and teach you all about how you can do Dungeons and Dragons games online while you're still distancing. And it's a whole lot of fun. So if you haven't started, that would be a great prize to win too. So I think what we'll do is we're going to hand it over to Wade here in a second. And then at the end, if you stay all the way to the end, I'm going to give away all 3 of those prizes. And you're going to email us at libraryprograms@cityofmissionviejo.org. I'll put it in the chat box down there to let us know if you're going to come by and pick it up, or if you're not local, we will mail it to you. And so with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker tonight, Wade Lucas. He is, I've known Wade for a while now. He's done several different events with us. He works for Penguin Random House. He's an avid reader. He's been nominated for Publishers Weekly Rep of the Year. That's a mouthful. At least twice, if I'm not mistaken, Wade. And is also the recipient of the Random House Outstanding Performance Award. And more than that, he is our inside man, because he knows everything that's coming out, the latest and greatest. And so with that, Wade, I'm going to turn it over to you, and please share with us tonight all of the things that we need to add to our reading list.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And before we start, I know Lulu, are we gonna, hi Lulu, I was just going to
how
talk
that
to
happened. Here I go. I'm gone.
Are we going to be able to convince Lulu to play Dungeons and Dragons after Friday? We'll see.
Oh, Alan's working on me. Alan, yeah, and Grace.
Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Wade Lucas. I work for Penguin Random House Publishing, and I'm one of those lucky people that gets to work in parts of California. I work with independent bookstores mainly, and then do marketing with libraries, author events, all sorts of fun stuff. So, I mean, you may have heard of some of the stores I work with. There's Warwick's in La Jolla, Vroman's in Pasadena, and up in Northern California, I visit the East Bay. So places like Mrs. Dalloway's and Rakestraw Books, so many great bookstores. But I will say one of the hazards of this job is going into all these incredible bookstores that carry things you'll never find in a bookstore anywhere else. And it's put quite a dent in my my bank account over the years, and continually so. Anyway, so that's me. That's basically what I do, is meet with bookstores and figure out what to carry. And we get to work with libraries to promote new books and literacy in general. And with that, I will go ahead and get started. And we do have a handout of the titles I'm going to talk about that you can get from the library. And so I will go ahead and start. And if you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat, and if we have time, we'll get to those. The first book I'm going to talk about, of course, if I can get this to switch, there we go. The Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch. I thought I'd start this whole thing out because when we do these What to Read Next presentations, I tried to do something a little different this time and kind of skew toward fantasy, science fiction, murder mystery, even some graphic novels. And I thought I'd kick it off with my absolute favorite fantasy book. Yes, this even knocked The Hobbit off of my favorite fantasy book list. The Lies of Lamora, which came out several years ago. It's kind of like Ocean's 11, but set in a fantasy world. Anyone who likes Game of Thrones, lots of twists and turns, and there are points in the book where you have to put it down. Some really good surprises. And it's the first book in a series. There are 3 books out now with another to come. And later in the series, there are pirates in a fantasy world. It's just so much fun. Then another paperback here, Mick Herron's Slow Horses. Mick Herron is a British author who is published by Soho Press here. Slow Horses is the first book in his series. This is one of those things, if you're going to read the first one, you're going to read all of them. And there are 4 other full-length novels, and I think 3 novellas you can get set in this world he builds, which is, it's set in London, and it's about these MI5 agents who are kind of put out to pasture. Either they've screwed up, or they, maybe they have some sort of abuse problem, substance abuse, or it's just time for them to retire. But they're not quite there yet. So they get sent to the Slow House, and all of a sudden there's this murderer who is threatening to live broadcast a murder in England, and these agents get activated and pulled back into what they were doing. So here's the really exciting part, and this is kind of why I love doing these things. I get to tell you a little bit of inside information that is out there, but not common knowledge. Slow Horses is being turned into a streaming show. It'll be on Apple Plus, if you have Apple Plus, which has a lot of great stuff, by the way. The thing I love best about these books is it's very, very British, with that British wit to it. I wouldn't say these are humor novels at all. They're definitely espionage, mystery, suspense, but there's this really great British wit. And this new show that's coming to Apple Plus the cast is insane. Gary Oldman is the star, for one. Kristen Scott Thomas is in it. And then one of my absolute favorite actors, and I'm going to butcher his name, but Bill Nighy is in it. So, I mean, you can't beat that cast. So really fun British mysteries with the TV show coming. This is the first book out in paperback. Then we have another older book, this one much older, Isaac Asimov's Foundation. And the reason I want to talk about this back to back is this is also coming to Apple Plus as a streaming show. And, you know, we were talking earlier about how, you know, you don't always read science fiction and fantasy unless you're a dyed-in-the-wool fan of that stuff. And I think Foundation is kind of, it's considered a classic for many reasons. And I think you'll see why they're making this into a show now. So the whole idea of the Foundation books, and there are several, is it's set far, far in the future. Humanity's spread to the stars, colonized, and what happens is this scientist his mastery of mathematics is almost mystical, and that kind of plays a part in people don't trust him and they don't like his theories. And he predicts that this massive human empire is going to fail. So he decides to start the Foundation, which is a collection of all of mankind's knowledge in one place, in this deserted planet, distant location. And guess what? The current regime doesn't want this to happen. So it's really an interesting look at the government, actually, in a new and exciting way, and also the importance of knowledge and what it means to be human. So I can't wait for the show. If you get a chance, go watch the trailer. It's fantastic. And then just a little sneak peek at a June title, Malibu Rising. Taylor Jenkins Reid she can do anything. She's an amazing writer. We had Daisy Jones and the Six from her about the fictional 70s rock band that was a huge bestseller a couple years ago. This is her brand new book, comes out June 1st. And Malibu Rising, you can guess it, it is set in Malibu. And it's about this very famous family and their kind of annual party that either you know about it or you're nobody. It's kind of one of those who's very LA party, and it's set in the early 80s, which makes it even more fun. And it's kind of the siblings of this rich family coming together and the secrets. And Taylor's just an incredible master of character. I mean, some of these characters, and I had the same thing happen in Daisy Jones and the Six, she'll convince you these are real people. It's really wonderfully well done. Then we have Elizabeth Letts, who, and I know this isn't exactly what I was kind of tailoring this presentation to, but I thought since this is Mission Viejo Library, our friend Elizabeth Letts, who's a local LA author, she just had the book about the making of The Wizard of Oz and $80 Champion, and this wonderful writer. She lives in Palos Verdes, actually. Her brand new book, which comes out on the 1st as well of June, The Ride of Her Life, is the true story of a woman who in the early 50s in Maine is given 2 years to live. She's broke, she doesn't know what to do, but she's always wanted to see the Pacific Ocean. So what she does is she buys this horse that's being sold very, very cheaply and decides to ride across the United States. This is an absolutely true story. And during that time, I mean, she had to put on men's clothing and rely on the kindness of strangers to make this journey. It's an absolutely wonderful book. And I'm sure Mission Viejo Library is already in the works with an event, so keep your eye open. Then we go back to mystery with Laurie King. So if you haven't read Laurie King before, she's been around for many years, writes this amazing series featuring Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes. And I mean, if you watch any of those fantastic British shows and you're not reading this series, you're going to binge the heck out of it. I highly recommend it. This is just the most recent, and it has kind of a little bit of a Gothic twist to it. Really wonderful stuff. Not fantasy, but it is really compelling mysteries with these two really fun characters at the middle of it. And then she does take these characters around the world too. You'll get these great locations. And I mean, when you're reading it, you're just dying to see what these people are wearing. It's kind of like if you like the Miss Fisher mysteries, you will love these actually. And then brand new thriller, Steel Fear. This is a little bit different. And the way I've been describing it, it's kind of like Thomas Harris, you know, who wrote Silence of the Lambs or Hannibal. set on an aircraft carrier, which is such a unique twist. There is a killer. There are people who suspect or even may not suspect who it is. And there's a cat and mouse game that all happens on this, I mean, granted it's gigantic, but claustrophobic, middle of the ocean, where are you gonna go? It's really, really a lot of fun. But it's one of those things, don't start it too late at night. And yes, I'm being cheesy, but you really will stay up to finish it, to find out who the killer is. Then Rabbits. Terry Miles, this is a really interesting contemporary fantasy book. And it's hard to go too far into it because there's so many layers to it. But Terry Miles, actually another LA author, who has a very popular podcast called Rabbits. And his whole thing is he kind of plays with reality in his podcast. And he does that here with the book. And you don't have to have listened to the podcast to enjoy the book. It's a completely different experience. But I guarantee if you read the book, you're going to be so intrigued, and all the mysteries and the conspiracies and the layers. And it's just a whole lot of fun. And that comes out in June as well. Then we have Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, who's one of our wonderful fantasy authors. She's published many books with us over the years, including her very popular Temeraire series, which is about the Napoleonic War, but with dragons. It's really fantastic. But her brand new trilogy that she's writing for us is very, very different than that. Deadly Education is the first of the three. And I had a colleague describe it this way, and I'm totally stealing it, not taking credit, Michelle, up in the Bay Area. But she said, picture Mean Girls meets Harry Potter, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I mean, come on, how cool is that? But it is about these young women studying to be witches. And it's definitely not for younger teens, definitely not. This is an adult book, but it could cross over if anyone's into like later YA, young adult books, that is. I think they could read this, but there's definitely adult content in here. But so good, and then it's one of those endings that I'll let you find out yourself. So we're gonna have a little Star Wars moment here. We published several of the official Star Wars novels. This is our newest. It's the second in the Thrawn series. And I just wanted to put the Star Wars books on your radar, especially if you're dealing with younger, like say teen readers who are termed reluctant readers who aren't really into it. Give them, if they're into Star Wars at all, give them the audio versions of the Star Wars books, the Star Wars novels, that is, or download them through the library, of course. They are so much fun. There's music and sound effects. And the books themselves, I mean, it's Star Wars. It's going to be the same kind of content that's family safe. I mean, there are going to be some plot points and things, but it's just like watching a Star Wars movie. So it's great to give to reluctant readers. They are adult books, but they're really gripping. And like I said, those audios are big winners. And the most exciting thing that's happening right now in the Star Wars books is they're uncovering this new era that happens before the movies. And the first book, if you'll see over to the right, Star Wars: The High Republic, which is what they're calling this time frame, The Light of the Jedi is the first book, and actually the first anything Star Wars that's set in this time period. And it was a #1 New York Times bestseller. I had kind of smaller, or I should say more intimate, independent bookstores that had never carried a Star Wars book before, and all of a sudden, all these orders from customers are coming in for Star Wars: The High Republic. So this is really exciting, a lot going on for this new era in Star Wars. And the way Lucasfilm works, there's a whole plan, and that's all I can say. The Book of Accidents. Chuck Wendig, he's written a few books for us as well. This is vintage Dean Koontz horror. The Book of Accidents, I mean, if little kids scare you, I don't know if you should even brave this book, but there's a coal mining town and maybe something mysterious there, and the couple who moves back, things have happened to them that they aren't sure happened or not, and you know, everything cycles through, and it's told in exactly like, you know, a really good Dean Koontz, where it grabs you, and there may be some things, suspension of disbelief here and there, but it just pulls you on this really dark kind of thrill ride. It's a lot of fun. That comes out in July, so if you're looking to end the summer off with a little bit of horror, can't recommend it highly enough. And look at that cover. Even the cover's scary, right? And then completely different, Kevin Hearn, who I love. He wrote the Iron Druid Chronicles, which are a lot of fun. It's about a druid living in contemporary, I believe it was Arizona or New Mexico. And so this is his new series. It's kind of a spin-off, the first book. And you know, the most popular thing about his books was the talking dog that was the companion of the main character. So this has that same sense of humor, and it's a little lighter. If people like the Harry Dresden books, they would love this. Kind of that magical realism. We call it urban fantasy. Really fun stuff. And then Minecraft, a little game that I'm sure a lot of people here have heard of, or you've heard of from your kids incessantly. We publish the official Minecraft books, like the strategy guides and the building guides and all that stuff. But we're also publishing, we've only had 2 out so far, the official novels set in the Minecraft world. And again, if you're looking for something for reluctant readers, especially if they like video games, these are great because it's stuff they can relate to, puts them in that world they're already immersed in through their computer, their console. Lots of fun. And these are not published as adult books. These are published as children's books. So there you go. And what a fun cover. I just think the whole Minecraft thing is so much fun. It's like digital Legos. Then back to the dark side of things, Mallory by Josh Mollerman. Josh Mollerman wrote the book Bird Box, which was turned into that huge kind of phenomenon on Netflix, Bird Box, the movie, with Sandra Bullock. And if you recall, it was about an invasion of some sort where you can't look at the creatures. And so if you watched the movie, enjoyed it, this is the continued adventures of the main character, Mallory. And as you can see, she's still blinded. Then we have, I just want to remind people this book is out there, George Martin, Fire and Blood, but it's never been out in mass market paperback. And I'll explain to you right now, there of course is hardcover, and then paperback, there's, and I should have had an example here, I didn't think I was going to do this, but the paperback, you know, like you'd read in a book group, a little bit higher quality, bigger trim size paperback, that's what we call trade paperbacks. And then you have the little mass markets, which, you know, you see at the grocery store, any bookstore really, but you know, you've looked at those Tom Clancy's before. So anyway, this is the first time this particular George R.R. Martin book will be available in that smaller format, great for the beach. So George Martin, of course, wrote Game of Thrones, and the new one of the new series spin-offs on HBO is going to be based on this book, which is a look at the dragon family, the Targaryens, and kind of hundreds of years of their history. And a lot of this influenced the TV show. So this is great if you're interested in Game of Thrones or the new show. Then something a little different, The Confidence Men. This is so much fun. We were talking about nonfiction and book groups earlier, or actually just nonfiction in general. And for me, I don't tend to go towards straight history, that sort of thing. I tend to go for something a little quirky and different, and very narrative, like Eric Larson style. And Confidence Men achieves that. And I wish you could see, once you see the actual book when it comes out in June, there's this fun Ouija board theme up across the top. And this is the true story of 2 men who escape a concentration camp using a Ouija board. Honest to goodness, this really happened. It's such an incredibly fun story. So there, I thought I'd put something a little bit different in there. If you like history, you like something a little quirky and different, lots of fun. And then another nonfiction title, The Sirens of Mars. This just won the Whitting Award for nonfiction. And this is so readable. You don't have to know anything about science. It's very accessible. This is this woman's look at our fascination with the red planet. And I think this is, so timely. We're speaking about missions to Mars, and, we have all this new camera feed coming in. And I don't know if you listened to the sounds of Mars, but that was pretty interesting to hear the recordings of that. But Sirens of Mars takes a look at our relationship with Mars, and and the search for life is gone into an extreme detail here, but in a very lyrical, wonderful voice. It's really unlike any nonfiction book I think I've ever read. So there you go, Sirens of Mars. Hardcover is out currently. Paperback is out at the end of July. Great for book groups. And one of the fun things about it is you could use this with the book group to jump off into something, say, like the Martian Chronicles. Just a thought. Then we have, this is exactly what the title tells you. It's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And that's exactly what it is. It's a book group that hunts down vampires. So, you may relate to this in real life, not sure. Grady Hendrix, wonderful, fun author. He wrote Horror Store, which was a book about a possessed IKEA. And there's always this kind of humor, but he does it in a way that's really terrifying. Like the idea when you talk about it to each other, it's very funny. And then when you read the book, he gets pretty serious with it. So anyway, love his books, Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This has been a big bestseller, and a lot of fun for a book group. Is something completely different. If you like True Blood and like the Charlaine Harris books, it is kind of that, but a bit more serious. Then speaking of serious, Clark and Division by Naomi Hirahara, who happens to be another Los Angeles author. This is her first mystery with Soho Crime, and it's about the Japanese experience in Chicago during the following Mansonar. So it's this really interesting, very culturally rich look at the history of Chicago, but with a fictional story. And I have friends who live in Chicago, fellow reps who are there, and they say this captures it perfectly. There's a map in the book, because trust me, you're going to want to look at a map when you're reading this. And so lots of fun. Keep your eye out for Clark and Division. Mexican Gothic, again, with the great cultural interchange here. We have, this has been a big bestseller in hardcover. The paperback is coming out in June, yay. And Mexican Gothic is kind of the author's ode to Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's a Gothic novel set in the mountains about, I think, 90 miles north of Mexico City in the 50s. And this young socialite from Mexico City goes to visit a family member who's acting strangely, who's moved in with these British expats in this crumbling Victorian mansion in a mining town in the mountains of Mexico. So there's a lot going on here. It's so much fun. And I don't know, it's just so refreshing to read something or revisit something I haven't read in years, like the Gothic, I don't want to say fairy tale, but the Gothic tale. So lots of fun. And then her first book is also really great. It's Gods of Jade and Shadow. This is out in paperback. Same author as Mexican Gothic. This is kind of a jazz age take on Mexican mythology. And it's kind of like a Neil Gaiman-ish approach, but jazz age, Mexico. There's so much fun stuff in this book. And then the exciting news, and again, this is one of those inside scoops I can give you. I don't know if anyone knows about this yet, but Sylvia Moreno Garcia, who wrote Mexican Gothic and Gods of Jade and Shadow, this is her brand new book, Velvet Was the Night. It will be published in mid-August, the 17th. And again, she's kind of reimagined herself one more time. She went from kind of like a Mexican mythology, magical realism to Gothic literature, and now she's visiting the world of 70s kind of pulp detective stories. And it's set in 1970s Mexico, So much fun. And I mean, just look at that cover. You know exactly what you're in for when you pick up this book. And then Midnight Water City, another really exciting science fiction book, comes out July 13th. And this is, and you know, I'm kind of glad I'm presenting it after Silvia Moreno Garcia, because I think if you liked Mexican Gothic, you could kind of transform it into this in a way. It's a pulp noir detective story set in a science fiction underwater city. I know, wrap your head around that. It's something very different, but at the same time, it has that familiarity of that noir kind of pacing and characters, and but with a science fiction twist. Then we have Murder in Chianti. This is the first book in a series. This is about a retired policeman who goes to retire in Italy and kind of gets pulled back into solving crime, and you know, reluctantly, that is, because I mean, who wouldn't want to just retire, drink Chianti in gorgeous Italy? And you know, we kind of have those jokes about Midsummer Murders. If you watch that show, it's kind of who's left alive in Midsummer. But anyway, so hopefully Chianti will get to that point, or this region in Italy will get to that point. But if you like that show, you like the mystery set in other countries, it's really wonderful. Just look at that cover. I mean, I know we can't travel to Italy. Well, probably shouldn't travel to Italy right now, but this will take you there if you read it. And then the same character returns in the brand new book, which comes out in August. This is book 2. The Bitter Taste of Murder. And again, look at that cover. I just want to go there. And something very different, Mort, another Soho Press book. This is a very interesting dystopian science fiction. Mort is the first book in a series. Came out several years ago. It's out in paperback. It's kind of like Animal Farm, but updated. It's one day we wake up and animals have been elevated. They become sentient. And, you know, I think about this sometimes. I'll admit I'm a nerd, and I'm actually surprised my cat hasn't attacked us on Zoom yet. But I always kind of wonder if my cat actually could communicate what we say. And so this is kind of a fun concept, but brutal, because these animals are clashing with humanity. And anyway, so this is the first book, Mort. And look at that cover. It's great, huh? And then there are a couple books in between, including Dark, which is set underwater. You see what happens underwater when this kind of instant evolution happens. It's really great. And then the reason I'm talking about this series is the last book in the series, Malefactor, is coming out. And I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't read the other books, but it does continue this same war of evolution. And then Sweet Tooth, again, we're going dystopian. And again, I don't want to tell you too much, but Sweet Tooth revisits the classic Jeff Lemire graphic novel. Oh, this is a graphic novel, by the way, from DC Comics. It revisits the classic Sweet Tooth series, which is being turned into a Netflix show. And I don't want to tell you too much about it, because it's one of those things, just trust me, if you give it to someone who really likes a literary comic book or literary graphic novel, and they haven't read Sweet Tooth, they will love that. And then The Return revisits the original Sweet Tooth. So great new material for fans and for new readers. You don't have to have read the whole series to read this. And then the compendium is the entire original run of the comic book in one graphic novel. So there you go, there's Sweet Tooth. And Scarenthood, which this better be someone's band name, because I just think it's fantastic. But anyway, Scarenthood, another graphic novel. And this is one of the best haunted house type stories you could read in graphic novel format, or in any format, really. The artwork's fantastic. And, you know, after you read it, you just want to stare at that cover, and I won't tell you why. Then we have kind of a fun thing, the Comic Book History of Animation. This is a paperback original, meaning we're skipping hardcover, going right into paperback. Comes out toward the end of July. If you're looking for gifts, someone has a late July birthday, into the holidays, this is a wonderful, very comprehensive and affordable, because it's paperback, look at the history of animation, and the style of the different eras of animation. It's really wonderfully done, lots of artwork. And then we have another graphic novel, Spine of the World, set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. And, you know, so ever since Stranger Things, the Netflix show happened, Dungeons and Dragons has just exploded in popularity again. And the graphic novels are a great way to enjoy that kind of experience, but you don't actually have to roll dice or do anything else. You just get to read a story. And I know this is going to be on Lulu's to be read pile. Then we have another graphic novel, which I am so excited about this. Lock and Key, which again, comic book graphic novel series that was turned into a very popular Netflix show. It's kind of like an adult Harry Potter, or if you like, The Magicians, similar to that. But they're re-releasing the original Lock and Key books, the graphic novel versions, in this box set, which is just stunning. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Comes out in June. Again, a great gift. And it's one of those things they aren't going to reprint quite often. And in fact, it will become unavailable eventually. So a great collectible item. It's $125, I know, but it is gorgeous if you really want something on your shelf that's beautiful and a really compelling read. Because the author, if you're not familiar with him, Joe Hill, is Stephen King's son, and has written many books, and you know, graphic novels for him, it's very cinematic the way the story is told, and you can tell when you're reading it, you know, you were like, this was destined to be on Netflix, which it was. Then we have Malice, really great kind of darker fantasy book. And again, this is not, I want to preface this with, this is not a teen book. This is an adult book that will cross over to older teens. They'll love this. It's the retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but with a very, very unique twist. And I don't want to spoil anything. It's a really great read. And I had some booksellers who got to read preview editions of this book and just were so thrilled about it. One reader in particular from Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore in San Diego, she got to be on a chat with the author, and it was just such a fun experience. But so the author is going to come back to this idea of revisiting fairy tales, making them even darker, and giving them a really unique contemporary twist. And then Andy Weir, Project Hail Mary. Andy Weir, of course, is the author of The Martian, which you may have heard either of the book or the movie or, you know, the t-shirts. Project Hail Mary, brand new book, comes out May 4th. And this is another one, it's so hard not to just go on and on about. But if you go into this blind or semi-blind, because I'm going to give you a little bit, you're going to have so much fun, which is what happened to me when I first read the manuscript of The Martian, way before anybody knew anything about Andy Weir, way before we knew anything. It was coming out, and I had the manuscript, you know, about a year before the book comes out, read it, fell in love, and was so glad I didn't know a thing about it when I jumped in. And Project Hail Mary, kind of similar thing, and I'll just give you a very brief setup. It is science fiction again. It's this astronaut who wakes up, no memory, on a spaceship, and the only company he has are two fellow crew members who are deceased. He doesn't know what mission he's on. I mean, it's really fun and unexpected. And I love an author who can pull this off, the amnesia thing. And Andy does it so well. And it has his trademark nod to actual science. You learn something every time you read anything by Andy Weir. And there is a movie in the works with Ryan Gosling. So there you go, Project Hail Mary. And that's my presentation. And I hope you got some ideas on new stuff to read, and visit your library. And especially remember those audiobooks. You can get them through Mission Viejo Library. Great way to maximize your reading time. And like I said, even the Star Wars books, who knew there were sound effects and all sorts of music and fun things going on there. So if you can't watch the movie, read the audiobook. And so Sarah, Lulu, do you want to say anything?
Thank you so much, Wade. Just like every time you do one of your presentations, I've added a bunch of books to my to-do or to my to-read list. I'm super excited about Andy Weir's new book.
Yes.
He came when he did his last book, and he visited us, and he's just such an interesting guy, and like a completely normal guy too.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you could just know him. And so I'm super excited about that. So thank you for sharing all of your picks for upcoming, and I hope that everybody enjoyed it. I think what we might do is I will give a minute if anybody has any questions for Wade. If you have a few minutes, Wade, and want to hang out, if you have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A. And during that time, I will go ahead and do our prizes. I also want to say, if you are considering purchasing any of the books that you've heard about tonight, our partner bookseller, Creating Conversations, has been doing this event with us for a couple of years, Mysterious Galaxy before, and now transitioned over. But we love it when you support them and your independent booksellers. If you have another store also that you buy from, sometimes people don't know, but libraries, publishing houses, and bookstores work together. And it's great when we all support each other. So please consider that. And then for our prizes tonight, let's see. Okay, so drum roll. I have no sound effects. We'll just improvise here. So imagine a drum roll. So our Diary of a Wimpy Kid book goes to Abdullah Rafiq. Abdullah Rafiq is the winner. Yay!
Yay.
And for our poster, our Mara poster, our winner is Julie Duane. Julie Duane, you're a winner. I know you're out there going, me? Little me? Yes, it's you, Julie Duane. And our last prize, which was our D&D starter kit, which I think you're all excited about now. Lulu's going to be jealous that she's not winning it tonight, but it's actually going to go to Mike Lena. So Mike Lena, yeah, you're the winner of our D&D.
I'll be your sound effects.
Woohoo! Those are our 3 winners: Abdullah Rafiq, Julie Duane, and Mike Lena. I hope I'm saying all of your names correctly. You can email. Oh, I see Julie Duane's there because she said yay. And so all of you email us at libraryprograms@cityofmissionviejo.org, which is in the chat box. I hope you can all see it there. And we will arrange with you how you can come and pick it up, or we'll get it sent over to you. And with that, I do see a question here for you, Wade. So those of you, if you're able to stick around for our Q&A, if you think of anything, again, throw it in the little chat box at the bottom, and we'll share it with Wade. So it says here, the author of the Book of Accidents has written numerous books, question mark?
Mm-hmm. He's had some books with us, and also with a really wonderful, if you've never heard of them, they're called Angry Robot, which great name, right? They're a really, really fantastic independent publisher that publishes a lot of this kind of urban fantasy, and which means kind of, you know, the Harry Dresden, True Blood, that sort of thing, like fantasy elements in a contemporary setting. And they also do some fantasy and science fiction, but that seems to be their bread and butter. And Chuck has published several books with them. And fortunately, they're part of the family, because they do, we do distribute and sell them to bookstores, even though we don't own them. We have a partnership, which is the same with DC Comics, like I was talking earlier. But anyway, so he has some books with them that are urban fantasy. And he also, with us, had a book called Wanderers, which came out, I believe it was, let me double check the date here. The hardcover was in 2019, paperback 2020. And it's probably the most disturbing book I've ever read about artificial intelligence, barring Robopocalypse, if anyone read that. So he's written that. He also wrote some Star Wars books. Yeah, he's been around, and he's a great writer. Gets very in-depth with his stories, a lot to them. So there you go.
Awesome. I have a question for you, Wade, too, as we wrap up. There's some thank yous in the comments, but also Sylvia Moreno Garcia, where does she live? Because she's amazing, and I want her to go on book tour and come to Mission Viejo.
I would love that too. She lives in the Pacific Northwest, and you know, this most recent book, Mexican Gothic, was such a big breakout for her. She is absolutely thrilled. She never in a million years expected it to become this phenomenon. And So she is going to be doing stuff. And one of the wonderful things is she's bilingual, so she can also do Spanish events. And
Oh,
we
that
don't
would be
always
great.
have the rights to the Spanish editions of her books, but I think that's wonderful that that opportunity is out there as well.
Yeah, her books are so atmospheric. I'm sure that this next one will be the same. And she's kind of seems like a rising star, to say the least, in the book world.
When I did pitch, I guess this is another inside scoop for you all. I pitched Mexican Gothic for the San Diego Reads One Book program. So we're hoping that she'll be able to do that because they partner with the city of Tijuana and they do kind of a joint program. And we're thinking this would be the perfect author to be able to do bilingual events, not just, you know, a regular author event, but give more accessibility to the program.
That would be great. Well, keep us in mind as all of you bigwigs make the planning. Don't forget about little old Mission Viejo. I think we would all be thrilled, of course.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And you do a good job.
Yeah.
Of course you will.
Doctor presents. Yeah.
I sing the praises. Actually, if anyone, I guess I should have told you all in the beginning, Mission Viejo Library was one of my libraries growing up. And Sarah, you know, we both know San Juan Capistrano Library very well. I used to ride my bike to either library from, I lived in Village San Juan when I was a kid. So I'd bike either direction to go to the library.
I love that.
Long bike right now
that.
that I think about it, but yeah. Oh, sorry, what was that, Sarah?
I've always thought too that as somebody who used to work in the San Juan Library, that like everybody goes through the San Juan Library at some point in time. And if you haven't missed that, if you've never been there, I'm going to pitch that library too. It's a Michael Graves building, and it's just this really very unique and different library. Come to our library too, but it's always great to go and visit different libraries and see. And the architecture there is just special because San Juan is kind of different. But I love picturing Wade riding around on a bike, visiting libraries. I think you have fallen into the right profession. It seems very fitting.
Thank
and well, it looks like that's most of our questions, and we're just about out of time. So I think this is perfect. I'll pitch for those of you who are still on. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 6:30, same time. We have a panel with Russell Nolte and a couple other really amazing guests who are going to talk about crafting an anthology and writing. And so I know a lot of people who attend these events, there might be a writer in you. And if you need to know how to kind of get started down that path, that's a great panel for you to visit. So I highly encourage you to tune in tomorrow. And we'll clean up this recording since we started a little early, and we'll get this posted up on Facebook, as well as the list of all of the titles, Wade, that you shared with us tonight. And so thank you very much for your time, Wade. We so appreciate you being here. And thank you everybody else for attending. And I think that's a wrap.
Keep reading.
Keep reading. Good night, everybody.
Good night.